I'll wait and maybe ask Katie a question. So you talked about this insight of this new sensorium, and then you gave all these other examples of, you know, these other insights. But to me, all the other insights sort of show that it's still an audio visual. It's not taste or touch or smell. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, it's pretty obvious because we're talking about the internet. But is there anything that you found in the ethnography that would lead you to believe that there's some trend towards people trying to do things outside of just sight and sound?
Well, the point of the first part of the ethnography was really to deal with the meaning of this blizzard of imagery that's we see, and the often remarked upon diminution of text writing. A lot of people in the ethnography describe something I call the burden of text, and they found writing to be burdensome and difficult on the online space. And you know, I was brought up to believe that where you had to learn to write. And you had the literacy paradigm was so forefront in my mind, and I think for a lot of people that was the case. But now it just struck me, and just to go back, and it struck a lot of people at Google as well. A new language was developed that we didn't really understand. It's audiovisual is one way of saying it, but the way I put it is this rise of the communicative power of the image itself. This became, the arresting image was so important for people. And I really didn't understand the language they were using for this visual imagery. And I had to go back into art history, all sorts of subfields and humanities to try to grapple with what they were saying to me and try to translate the meaning of what they were saying in terms of these old ideas. And I came up with this idea, this Ong's idea of the sensorium, this idea that we are transitioning. We're transitioning from one more literary literacy paradigm to a communicative paradigm of different imagery. And other aspects of our senses seem adjunct to the image, but the image seems to be the dominant way of communicating. So, you know, that's a commercial problem. YouTube and all these people. You know, what are they saying by using all these images? I mean, is it just nothing? Is it nonsense? Is it? Are we dumbing down? If you go online and search the Google presentation, they delivered this in various venues. One was at Con, VCU Brown Center, Yale Consumer Conference, a bunch of stuff. But they opened their presentation by showing all these ridiculous YouTube imageries and a name, a cat video supposedly, and setting up a kind of straw man, say, are we getting dumber? I mean, you know, what is this blizzard of imagery supposedly so superficial saying about us? And then they flip it based on the ethnography and say, well, no, actually these other elements going on. We're developing a new period of life. We are using imagery in very sophisticated ways to communicate all sorts of emotions and feelings and ideas that have depth. So that's really.
Well, one of the things is, given that the internet or the web or whatever is basically, it's text, audio, or visual, pretty much you're going to end up with stuff that is that. But it's kind of important that you mentioned that. I wasn't thinking about the fact that the image is becoming the dominant means for communicating over text, even though there's a just slew of text, as Katie kind of talked about. It's like there's lots and lots of text out there, but it seems to be less provocative these days than images are.
People talked about being a different mindset when they were talking in imagery or through imagery, a more open, exploratory mindset versus text, which they found linear. Different part of their brains were being used almost. They weren't as open. They couldn't express as many ideas as quickly. And they didn't see the image as flat, they saw text as flat in terms of
Mm.
the amount of emotional image ideas that were coming through. Text has become flat, and you see that the email exchanges text. There's nothing there, not much, but there's nothing there, but let's say on a continuum, people are becoming more open to the communicative possibilities of the image. Really exploring that.
Did you have a question for Katie as well?
If I can ask it, can you talk about bias related to using these digital technologies? So, just like one thing I was thinking of when you were talking about the digital safari thing is, if you're, let's just say, you know, this is just sort of made up sort of anecdote, but let's say you're only using an iPhone app and not an Android app. You're going to limit the type of people, and then another case similar would be, you know, the age group. So maybe if you wanted to get a sense of older people, that they might not be as in tune to using that, where younger generations might.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent point to bring up. So the way, part of how we designed a research project is really just taking that in mind and thinking about what's the audience that we're studying and what's the country and location, because in addition to that, it's also just the country's digital infrastructures are different. So we've done mobile work in Brazil, and we actually allow people to also like sort of text us as well, because their plans are so expensive, and we don't know how to, we don't want to sort of overthink how to pay for them to incentivize that. But to your point, mobile safaris are something that's sort of growing, but it's not widespread across research because we can't use it in every audience. So it's almost like we would examine the sort of audience that we're looking at and make a decision whether that makes sense and it will bias our recruit. And you know, even there's so many limitations in research. Even if you think of language, translation for doing research around the world is so expensive. It's cheaper to recruit people who speak English, but that's going to bias your recruit, right? So you have to like.
It's just cheaper because you don't have to pay for the translation.
Exactly. Yeah, it's cheaper for you, and yeah. But actually, the reason I said that is because recruiting people that speak English in different countries is more expensive. So, but it's cheaper than paying a translator, which is very, very expensive. So it's almost like putting a cocktail together and weighing your cost benefit and thinking about sometimes, you know, if you need to study a different language and you have to make those sacrifices. But always, we definitely like keep an eye on how to sort of construct our project using these tools that won't bias it, and it doesn't always work. You don't want to use, you know, a mobile safari for, you know, an elderly age group that doesn't know how to.
Yeah,
use
that was just. I was just using that.
There's no way that you would. Why would you? You know.
I was just picking that as an example of just like one case where, but even like in online communities, which you have a lot of background in, it seems that the people that would use those, they're self-selecting then, right? You're sort of getting a particular demographic that are people who are vocal in a particular.
So the way that we recruit for an online community is saying, do you have a Facebook page and do you know how to post on Facebook? Because the interface for the community is pretty simple and similar. So we make an assumption that if you know how to upload and share a post on Facebook, you're able to upload and share a post in a community. So good research communities are extremely simple and very intuitive, the way that Google would make their products. You want people to have as little clicks as possible and as little words on the page, probably even more imagery than needed, so that they intuitively understand the experience better than writing them a lot about what they're about to experience. They should just get it. A lot of that also involves video. So instead of writing an assignment, a lot of digital ethnographers are actually just recording a video for participants each day and asking them to do something. It's also more engaging. They see a face. They're more, you know, so that their entry, they want to participate more because they're like, oh, you're a real person. I'm talking to Katie every day. I'm not talking to this sort of blank face. So that's helpful. And, you know, I think imagery, to Tom's point, is a great space to sort of explore, and people really want to share photos in these communities, and it's, you know, it's very heavy on our computers. So we're trying to like limit that, but not really. Joke. But.
So usually we have more questions, but since you've gone way over, I encourage you to talk to Tom and Katie now. We have wine, and everyone can drink some wine, network, talk to each other, make sure you talk to people who do not have your same on the block, so you can